All right, guys, welcome to your Freedom Wake Up Call. I'm your host, Chip Darby, broadcasting live from the Freedom Firearms and Defense Studio. We have a guest with us today, and something unique about this guest. Typically, I have a lengthy conversation, or I get to meet the guests before they come on. I've had especially when they're state representative candidates, I like to stay involved. But unfortunately, I have not had the pleasure of actually having a conversation with this gentleman. He's running for HD18. His name is Dr Missick. So the first time he and I have talked have been really this morning. Stephen, welcome to the program. Happy to have you here. First of all, can you give us just a quick, brief background of yourself?
All right, I'm Dr Missick. I have a military background. I served for 30 years in the Army Reserves and the National Guard. I have 2 combat deployments to Iraq. I went to Iraq 2003 and 4 as a soldier, as a sergeant. I went back again as a chaplain in 2009 and 10, so I had 2 deployments to Iraq. And then I've done various missions to the National Guard, like hurricane missions and things like that. And then I did 4 years, or over 3 years, and then the last year I was doing a week here, a week there on the border mission. So I've done the mission I was on was called Operation Guardian Support, but I also did Operation Lone Star, Operation Lionheart, and then what we have now is Operation Lone Star. So you have Operation Secure Texas, the earlier one that ran on into and concurrently with Operation Guardian Support. So I know the border very well, and I think that's the biggest problem we're facing as a country. And I think that this sets me apart from Ernest Bales and even Janice Holt, because, I mean, our country, we're not going to survive this. We need to take decisive action on the border, and I believe Trump's going to get reelected. And when he is, we're just going to have to do deportations. But anyway,
typically, I've got a list.
Yes.
I try and ask similar questions to each guest running for the specific thing. But let's go ahead and jump to this one. Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution requires the United States to repel invasions if there is some form of delay, or the U.S. does not respond, the several states do not respond. The U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, Paragraph 3, permits the states to act independently to repel an invasion. Now, it says states. A lot of people are going, well, the governor can do it. This has been an argument from when Kathy Glass was running, from Deborah Medina was running, when all these people were running against various governors. They said, well, the governor could do it. And that's true. But it reserves the power to the states. The power of the states is vested in the people. So, by proxy, they're representatives, which is the position you're running for. Would you introduce legislation to strengthen not our National Guard, but the State Guard, to use them to repel invasions?
well, the State Guard's already on the border mission right now, as well as the National Guard. They're supplementing what we're doing there. And I've worked with the State Guard. I really appreciate what they do, but they don't meet the same, like me as a chaplain. I had to earn a master's degree, had to get all these certifications to be a chaplain, and the standards for what they do is a lot less, even their physical fitness and things like that. I mean, I appreciate the State Guard, I really do, but it's not the exact same as a National Guard. We have more muscle in the National Guard.
And I don't think you understood the question. Would you introduce a bill to strengthen them, to get them to that level?
Right. I believe that we need just to declare an invasion. Now, Governor Abbott has not formally and legally declared an invasion. He says, well, I declared an invasion, but he didn't issue a declaration of invasion. Since Joe Biden took office, I think I went to listen to Dan Patrick talk, and he thinks, and it's probably true, that we're looking at maybe as many as 20 million illegal aliens have crossed since Joe Biden took office. So we need to have deportations, but we need to actually have the National Guard repelling these people, not allowing them to cross over. And like right now, I appreciate what's going on in Shelby Park, and they ran the Constantino wire, but the Christian Broadcasting Noon, which is connected to 700 Club, they went up like 2 miles up the road from Shelby Park, and illegal aliens are just streaming across and being detained and processed. Yes, we need to stand up, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. And the governor should have taken decisive action a long time ago. Now, look at what Kari Lake did. Kari Lake said she's running for governor. When I win, I'm going to formally declare an invasion, and I'm going to, mobilize the National Guard and have them, push these people out, repel these people. And what did they do? They sabotaged all the machines and had the right paper. They did the same thing in Harris County. voter fraud to keep her out of office because the powers that be, they want an open border. And it's going to kill this country. But
Well, the open border definitely will damage this country severely. I mean, we're with voter fraud, we're importing 20 million illegal voters. That's a concern for me with Colony Ridge as well, which I'd like to
Right.
address in a few minutes.
Right.
But I'm going to go one. What, as a representative, I know the U.S. Constitution permits Congress to declare war. Could our state Congress declare an invasion
I
where the
would.
governor has failed?
I would do that. I would introduce legislation just to declare an invasion at the border. And like I said, I've been all across the border on the mission, from Brownsville, every ranch, every port of entry, from Brownsville all the way to El Paso. I've been to Eagle Pass, I've been to Del Rio, and so I know the border, and I've seen policies that work and I've seen policies that don't work. And there's two things you need to do. Number one is build a wall. When I was down there, of course, our Republicans in Congress would not give our President Trump, the money to build the wall. So he had to take funds out of the Pentagon. So they started building the wall, and in McAllen, they have a lot of wall from Brownsville to McAllen already, but they need more, and they're expanding it. And then La Jolla is down the road. It's like, hey, we want more wall here too. You need to understand that community down there is like 85 to 90% Hispanic. It's always had a large Hispanic population down there since Texas is an independent state. It's probably been over 50%. Now it's 85% to 90%.
I hate to do this to you. We're getting close to a break. When we come back from break, I want to change topics for a minute because there's the border is a very important issue, but there are some other hot button issues.
Yes.
You are running for HD18. This is Stephen Missick who's joining us. He's running for the incumbent Ernest Bale's spot, hopefully to do
Unseat him.
Okay.
Right. Put it that way.
All right. Well, we'll be back in just a minute. You're listening to your Freedom Wake Up Call. Now, today we're visiting with Stephen Missick. He is running for HD18. That is the position currently held by Ernest Bales. And Stephen, before we went to break, we got straight into the border. I was not wanting to go to the border just yet, but we did. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions I normally ask people. The term rhino bothers me. And the reason it bothers me is because what I see from the politicians, rhino is supposed to be the exception to the rule, but it seems to be the rule.
Right.
And so someone who actually follows the state platform, the party platform, seems to be the exception. But there are like 200-something planks on the platform and their legislative priorities. How many of the planks or how many of the priorities do you think a representative or a person running in the Republican Party should follow?
Well, if you're a Republican, you should follow the Republican Party platform, right? That's absolutely true. Even in the Congress, where we probably have 100 of or 200 aren't real Republicans. And look at Ernest Bales, for instance. This isn't a conservative think tank or a campaign. It was Rice University Analytics put his voting record in the computer, and it clicked out liberal. He was only slightly conservative one legislative session. If you look at the graph they created, he's right on the
Rice
edge.
University?
Rice University Analytics. Look at that. He's 3 of his legislative sessions are firmly in liberal. One is right on the borderline, and it's only slightly conservative. So we have a lot of problems. We should be a party of freedom. We need to look at what the Democrat Party really is today. I mean, we have to look at reality. It's a Marxist, totalitarian, statist party, and they're trying to kill our democracy. They're doing it.
Let's jump to the next question real quick, because as a part of that, they have infiltrated. They're indoctrinating our youth because they've infiltrated the upper education, higher education facilities, and that of course trickles down because that's where you get your teachers.
Right.
So the state constitution prohibits people from being compelled to support a ministry against their will, and Article 1, Section 6 states that the public school system is basically a humanist religious ministry supporting evolution, LGBTQ, and things of that nature. So many people who homeschool or private school, it is obviously that they're not interested in that doctrine.
Right.
But we're being compelled to support that ministry through the M&O portion of our property tax. What options do you think we should look at?
Well, I think that's absolutely true, and I think the state of Texas needs to tackle leftism in our state schools. We shouldn't have this nonsense going on in our state school. It's anti-American. Critical race theory, They're poisoning the minds of our children against our country, our young people, but it's also in the public schools. I mean, look at these teachers' unions or associations, whatever you want to call them. Look at that woman, Randy Weingarten. These are crazed left-wing fanatics. The teachers' unions are the biggest lobbyists and special interest groups, the biggest fundraiser for the Democrat Party. And something has to be done. That's why I support school choice, actually, and homeschooling, because they're brainwashing our kids.
So how do we achieve school choice?
Well, I guess pass the legislation.
Well, this, believe it or not, there are a lot of homeschool coalitions who oppose school choice.
I know why.
And you know exactly why.
Yes.
The
The
audience
idea,
needs to
well,
know.
the way I look at it is we're in a crisis, and with education, and we need to take decisive action now to break the power to these left-wing teachers unions. We have to do it to break this Marxist ideology. Remember what happened in Virginia, where parents they're concerned about draconian COVID restrictions, and kids are home and they're seeing the curriculum, they see what their kids are being taught, and it's like, what is going on here? They're upset. They go and air their grievances. What happens? The teachers union, national school board associations, till they stick the government on. The FBI starts coming after parents. That shows how desperate they are to control the schools.
Well, what would we do with the school choice? Are you talking about repairing the school system? Are you talking about
giving parents the choice to opt out and just go to all parents, empower all parents to go to a private or Christian school or homeschool their kids? Now, the concern people have is like, so you are taxed, and a portion of your taxes is supposed to go to the education of your children. School choice means you take those funds and use it to educate your children how you want, in a Christian school, a private school, or homeschool. Now, the concern certain people have, and I understand this, is that, well, if the government gives you the money, there's strings attached to it, and maybe they'll start forcing homeschoolers to do CRT. Yeah, as if parents are going to do that, right? But I do understand their concerns. I think we could address that legislatively. I just think that's a theoretical. That's something that's possible. But what's happening right now is, even in the state of Texas, you see liberalism being indoctrinated in our schools here too. Don't think it's not happening, because it is. And Texas is one of the largest, most influential, powerful states in the nation. If we deal with it here, perhaps we can break the power of these teachers unions. That's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about our kids. I'm concerned about our kids being indoctrinated in leftism, and this might be a powerful tool in breaking the power and the influence of these left-wing teachers unions, CRT and things like that.
All right, we're drifting off topic,
Yeah.
and I want to, because you brought up a great point. Teachers unions. Should we have unions for public employees?
I think that, well, I was talking to somebody, like, well, technically they're not teachers union, it's a National Education Association. So what is it really? It's really a very powerful lobbyist or special interest group. And both my parents were educators and worked in the public education. I have experience working in public schools as well. And my father get all over my mother because she supported the NRA, I guess, for all the benefits. And I look at their publications, they are hard left. And these people, you don't want these people as crazed and extreme as they are teaching your kids.
Oh, God, man.
So-
I dug into this deep. There's something called queering the elementary,
Right.
queering the education. These are groups that support and propose the anti-bullying.
Well, what they're doing is that's homosexual propaganda.
Yes,
but they're saying, we're being bullied. But think about this: who's being bullied? It's like with transgenders. Oh, if you oppose transgenderism, you're going to get people killed. Actually, transgenders. They went Nashville. I grew up in Nashville, and my father is teaching at a Presbyterian church. So what happened? A transgender person goes into a Presbyterian church and school and starts mowing people down. Here in just the other day, Lakewood Church, a transgender goes into church, starts killing people. Evangelicals, we're the ones that are being slaughtered. Solon Springs outside of San Antonio, a massive, how many people died? A third of the church killed by some radical left-wing atheist. White settlement, that could have been bad if the elders and deacons weren't concealed carry. So they say these things to, as excuses to, protect their ideology, but we need to challenge their assumptions with the facts of what's really going on.
And all of that's being pushed through our school system
Yes.
here in Texas. A lot of people don't realize. But again, the anti-bullying propaganda, it targets schools. And that doctrine, dogma, whatever you want to call it, is introduced, those policies are introduced to the public school system as, quote, anti-bullying.
Right.
And so they're accepted, embraced, and then they're forcing this on our children. on our children.
It's like Orwellian, right? Oh, you're not against bullying, are you? But it's really to get their foot in the door and indoctrinate our kids into, these alternate lifestyles. I remember years ago, I think it was in Bismarck up north. They had this school curriculum where they're teaching children in elementary school perverse sexual acts. What's going on right now? There's several schools that have graphic homosexual pornography in elementary, middle, and senior high schools. So this is what's going on. This is what they want to do. Sexualize children. It's sick. Or just like it disturbs me to bring in a drag queen story hour, or here in Dallas, Texas, taking children to a strip show, basically. What did Jesus say about that to people who abuse children? It's an outrage.
Woe to them.
Right.
It would be better that a millstone was cast or tied about their neck and them cast into the ocean.
Look at President Biden. The way he fondles kids, it's disgusting.
Well, I'm sorry. He'd make a great TSA member, though, wouldn't he?
Right. Groper, official groper.
Yeah, there you go. TSA security guard. I apologize. Let's get back to this. As far as the legislative platform, of course, school choice is one of them, and it's how do we get there. That was one of the Republican legislative priorities. Property tax is another, and it is tied directly to the public school system.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about eliminating property tax? What is your position?
I think we should eliminate property tax. It's too much. My father passed away of COVID a couple of years ago, and we have this estate, and we need to execute the will and all that. So I need to keep, until that's done, I need to keep the taxes paid. It's so much. It's ridiculous. And these are greedy people, and they're just taking and taking and taking, and then they lie to you. Oh, we're going to reduce property tax. I haven't seen it. And then you realize this is confiscatory. It's exploitative.
You haven't seen it? I thought that Ernest Bales and Dave Phelan were sending out flyers about how they gave us a huge
tax.
Yeah.
Well, I recommend your listeners look at Texans for Fiscal Responsibility, and they're overtaxing us. They have like a $30 billion surplus from money they exploited and confiscatory taxation. They got 30. What are they going to do with it? What they should do with that is give us relief. It's like, man, you guys got $30 billion. Why don't you go through that instead of squeezing all the money out of me, trying to tax us out of our property?
All right. Well, we're right up against the break. So what we're going to do when we get back, these are. I know these are extensive topics, and there's a lot to be said on it. But I want to go to Colony Ridge and voter fraud when we get back. You game? You there?
Yeah,
you
yeah.
Ready? I think
Colony Ridge is in my backyard, so.
Ooh,
yes.
Nice. All right, you're listening to Your Freedom Wake Up Call. We have Stephen Missick running for HD18. We'll be back in just a minute. All right, as much as I love Skillet, we're not going to finish that song because we've got a great guest. You're listening to Your Freedom Wake Up Call. I'm your host, Chip Darby. Today we have Steve Missick running for HD18, and thus far, what I've heard from HD18, we have two solid candidates. And I want to go back. We're going to cover Colony Ridge in a minute, but what I want to do is I want to go back, and we talked about the legislative priorities of the Republican Party, and there were a couple of big issues. Number one is pro-life. Number two is they don't want Democrats to be appointed to chairs, committee chairs. Someone in the Republican Party feels that if these Democrats are on these committee chairs, they won't allow legislation to come out. So can you tackle either one of those two before we move on to Colony Ridge?
All right. I think the pro-life issue is very important. I'm a pastor. I've been a pro-life activist. I preach about the issue in my congregation. I think all pastors need to speak on behalf of life because life begins in conception. God is the creator of life, and it says, "Thou shalt not murder." Now, Ernest Bales, he campaigned as pro-life, but in his first legislative session, he got a 42 from Texas Right to Life. Now he's at a 68, so he's still failing because he doesn't have a solid pro-life record. And everything we're doing, we're going to stand before the judgment seat of Christ, and I want to stand firm for life. And so that's something I believe is important. And let me hit, before you go on, I want to hit the chairman positions. Bipartisanship to the Democrats means caving into them, right? And they use power and authority, and we need to take and use power and authority, because their policies are all bad, they're wrong and destructive. If we care about people, we want to limit their destructive influence. So if you have a Republican majority, use it. Use it. And don't let anybody, what did Jesus say? A little leaven leavens a whole lump, right? So you have these people in chairmanships blocking conservative legislation. Look, what is the Democrat Party right now? They're campaigning. It's Joe Biden, not only can he not put sentences together, he can't even speak, but he's muttering gibberish at this campaign event. It said, was defend Roe? That's what they're going to campaign on? Killing the unborn? It's just despicable. What do we have? What in common does light have with darkness? That's what it says in the Scripture. So we need to take a stand for the side of light, for the side of the Constitution, and our great American heritage.
All right, well, I want to move on to Colony Ridge. Colony Ridge, to me, is tied directly to voter fraud because in the state of Texas right now, Ken Paxton cannot prosecute voter fraud, and we're looking at other ways to handle this. The Supreme Court, or the Court of Criminal Appeals, sent a verdict saying that it violates separation of powers, even though the legislative branch, passed a law giving him the authority. So there are two ways it can be taken care of. Number one, the voters put in better Court of Criminal Appeals. Number two, the legislators, you guys, would come in and fix that.
Right.
And the reason I think they're tied together is because Colony Ridge has a massive population that could be exploited for voter fraud.
Right. Now, I want to say that Ernest Bales attended a rally, Flip Texas Blue rally, and everyone that went there had to wear a purple shirt to show that they're committed to flipping Texas from red to purple to blue. So, having Colony Ridge and bringing in, it's right now 75,000 mostly illegal aliens in Colony Ridge. And Ernest Bales intends to grow that to 250,000, 250,000. And Glenn Beck did a video on Colony Ridge, and he says it's going to probably flip this district blue, which is that's what Bales has been trying to do for a long time. I want to say that I live in Shepherd, Texas, where Bales is from, and I pastor a church, King of Saints Tabernacle, in Cleveland, Texas. And Colony Ridge is like 5 miles down the road for me. I have people that come to my congregation who live just blocks from Colony Ridge. I know people that live there. And I've been tracking this issue for a long time. Actually, we had a debate, and Ernest Bales was like, you haven't been doing anything about Colony Ridge. It's like, well, I campaigned on it last time I went against you. I campaigned against property taxes. I campaigned against for school vouchers. And I campaigned against Colony Ridge. They're ravishing our environment down there. There's, according to reports, and I believe it, there's Gulf and Sinaloa cartel activity. There's sex trafficking. There's people. It's a shanty town. They're living in squalor, and they're not following code or regulations, and the whole drainage system there is failing. It's a flood zone, flooding all the way down to Kingwood. That's 30 miles away. That's a suburb of Houston. And there's not enough fire hydrants there. They're pumping raw sewage into Lake Houston, which is Houston's drinking water. Totally no accountability for what's going on over there.
Let's talk about accountability for just a second, because Ernest Bales, in his defense of his position for Colony Ridge, said, well, Colony Ridge has been around since I think it was like
2013 or 2011. Yeah.
He said that was long before I was in office, and that's true. It was, but it was a subdivision, a small subdivision.
Right.
He and Nichols introduced legislation which is proper to make it an MMD.
It doesn't qualify to be it's not a municipality, but anyway.
But municipal management district.
Right.
Okay, so these things were typically designed. The municipal management
district.
Thank you. I'm trying to get it out too quickly. The MMDs were designed to help rural areas. They've been around since the 90s. They've been designed, but typically oversight was there. The cities could appoint board members. The cities, they could not. These municipal districts could not expand without consent. They couldn't issue bonds without consent of the primary municipality. So every step of the way, the city had oversight, and the city always reserved the right to dissolve them. This is what Nichols and Bales removed, this accountability to the city, and that's why we have the situation with Colony Ridge.
That's Plum Grove.
Plum Grove.
And he's been in a battle with Plum Grove the whole time. So what Bales did is he basically granted the Harris brothers, John and Trey Harris, their own fiefdom. This is the kingdom of John and Trey Harris to do whatever the heck they want. They don't have to worry about the code or regulations. And he empowered and protected them with these legislative privileges. It's meant to grow. It's doing what they want to do. last time I debated against Bales, we had this teachers union. I went to it just this week. Raise Your Hand, Texas. And he's like, I have the fastest growing school district in the nation. They want to grow it. There are people, and the people don't want it in Cleveland and Plum Grove, but Bales and certain people in that area in administration and politics do want that. I guess with higher population, there's power to be had through that, right? So there are people that want Plum Grove. It's shocking, as bad as it is. There are people that want that to happen. And what's going on there is not by accident, it's by design, and it's by Ernest Bales' design. He's been going on, apparently, and people need to confront him. They need to confront him about impeaching Ken Paxton. You need to confront him about his hunting trips with John and Trey Harris. And I know for a fact, or somebody, it talked to Bales, and Bales admitted, well, it's obvious, he's met with John and Trey Harris many times, and they presented him with this request for this legislation. This was written to benefit them and to allow them to build this. They're expanding. They're trying to take over Tarkington Prairie outside of Cleveland, and they're buying up land all over the place. They're going to turn our entire House district into a third world shantytown controlled by the Mexican drug cartels. We need to have somebody stand up against it and stop this in its tracks now and hold these people accountable, rule of law, and force regulations on them.
And see, this is the thing people don't understand. We're Southeast Texas. They don't understand how close this is, how this affects all of us, not just Southeast Texas, but all of Texas. And these people coming in, you said it's about a 75K population. That's a significant voting block. It really is. If voter fraud cannot be prosecuted, which it can't at the moment. Listen, we've got another break. Do you mind going a little bit longer on
yes,
Colony Ridge when we get back? All right, you're listening to Freedom Wake Up Call. We have Steve Missick running for HD18, and we'll be back in just a few. All right, you're listening to Freedom Wake Up Call. I'm your host, Chip Darby. Today, we're visiting with Steve Missick, HD18 candidate, and we were talking about Colony Ridge and Ernest Bales' involvement. And this is important with the issues of voter fraud, with this is a huge thing, especially with the issues in our public school system, with the taxes, it's big. And so why does Ernest Bales do it? Does he get paid directly? Well, there is, my understanding, there's a report out that Ernest Bales' cousin is basically
working on construction on Colony Ridge. Right. So, if you want to look at this Texas Scorecard, and you got Daily Wire, Texas Scorecard, Wayne Dolcefino, and the New York Post. There's a lot of good journalistic organizations that have shined the light on Colony Ridge and Ernest Bales' involvement in it. And it's like, well, I'm just trying to manage it. Well, he's done a pretty bad job on it, hasn't he? Could you imagine that? I'm trying to manage it, and yet it's gone from, tens of thousands to, he's going to grow it to 250,000.
Now, my question is, if the legislation or the legislator was involved in creating it, couldn't they legislate it away? Or
yeah. When I win, if I win, I'm going to repeal HB 4341 because I think that's created, it empowered John and Trey Harris, and it's allowed Colony Ridge to grow exponentially. And that's why Ernest Bales introduced the legislation. He's supporting. Why is he going on hunting trips with Trey Harris? What's all that about? I don't know this is going on. Why hasn't he done anything about the sewage water being pumped into our public creeks, rivers, streams, and lakes, and our drinking water? It's his moral obligation to represent the needs and interests of these people, and this is to our great detriment to have. I've been to Colony Ridge several times. I've done missionary work around the world, and look, I loved India, I loved the Middle East and Africa. I really love those people and their culture, but the standard of living there, that's the standard. You see third world standard of living in Colony Ridge. According to the Department of Justice, those people that are there who are being recruited, when people are thinking about crossing our border illegally, John and Trey Harris are advertising, if you're going to cross the border, come here, come to Terranos, Houston, come to Colony Ridge and settle here. What has Bales done to bring accountability to this? Nothing. It's either by design or incompetence. Either way, we need new leadership. He allowed this to happen. Well, it was already there. It wasn't like this. Like I said, under him, it grew exponentially. He introduced the legislation that empowered Colony Ridge to be what it is and to become, as he intends to grow it, bigger than it is. Ernest Bales is trying to grow Colony Ridge to 250,000 people. We have to stop it now, and the only way to do it, the only way to bring accountability to Colony Ridge is to get the protector of Colony Ridge out of office, and that's Ernest Bales.
This repealing the bill. This bill not only takes the accountability away from Colony Ridge, but from other MMDs, doesn't it? Well, this could give Colony Ridges throughout Texas.
That's correct. You already see it, right? It's a business model, this scam, and there are people looking at that. Well, this is a get rich quick. The Harris brothers have made probably $30 million plus off of Colony Ridge, and people are looking at that, and there are Colony Ridge type organizations, whatever, developments popping up all over the place. You starting to see the similar communities in Conroe right now. Like I said, it's going to be like a cancer. It's a malignant cancer that's going to consume all of Texas if we don't deal with it right now. I talked to somebody. There are people who, like we had this man that ran for the mayor of Cleveland, opposing Colony Ridge. He received death threats. And someone told me, you should be careful about speaking out against Colony Ridge. There is cartel activity. They could target you if you dare oppose them in any way. But they're saying this is a business plan, and it is going to grow if we don't stop and confront it right now. And like I said, not only are people being inspired by Colony Ridge model, John and Trey Harris are starting to, like Tarkington. I lived in Tarkington for a while. That's going to become Colony Ridge Phase 2. But this is something that needs to be confronted as soon as possible.
Well, Colony Ridge, that's like I said, that's a huge thing.
Yes.
Listen, border security, what have we not covered? That's what I want to know. The hot buttons are property tax, and we still haven't got from you kind of how do you have a plan to eliminate property tax? Would you sign on to bills to help eliminate property tax?
I would sign off on bills. Nobody's done it. All these things where they're talking about reduced property taxes, they're not doing it. Like, we've passed legislation in Austin, and yet the local governments can continue to raise property taxes, right? Stop playing with people and deliver real property tax relief. And I think that we need to show we're serious. And it's like, if you're not going to have real change and bring relief, then we're going to have to put on the table abolishing property taxes, which I think we need to do. And there are people who worked on strategies and plans how to do that. Like I said, they already have a budget surplus of $30 billion. Why don't they go after that instead of coming after us,
I'm going to come back to this. You said very firmly property tax relief, and then you said or abolish property tax, which I think they should do. Right. Now that was kind of a side note. I caught it. I don't think the audience caught it. The part of our legislative priorities is the elimination of property tax. So
they're not doing that.
I know,
are they?
But you said you should run on that, and you said there are plans. You've seen plans to eliminate property tax.
There are other ways to. Texans for Fiscal Responsibility say it might take like 10 years, but there are ways to phase out property taxes and find other ways to fund our government, including our schools. And like right now, like I said, they have that huge budget they're not using. I mean, that budget surplus.
Well, I know a lot of people are afraid of if we put a consumption tax, if we put a sales tax, it'll be a tax on top of property tax. What State Representative James White, when he was in office, did was he proposed binding the legislation. In other words, this tax is bound with the on the same bill as eliminating the property tax. So they have to be tied together on one bill.
Remember, we had the Tea Party back in the day?
Oh, yes.
Taxed enough already. And what happened to them? Well, Lois Lerner, Joe Biden and Barack Obama targeted them. But we need to get back to that. We're being overly taxed, and we need to stop property taxes and have tax relief. And because they're greedy, they can't get enough money, and we need to stand up for the interests and needs of our people and put the citizens first, not these greedy politicians in Washington trying to just squeeze us too hard.
All right, well, we've got about 3-4 minutes left. What I would like for you to do is tell the voters anything they need to know about you and where they can go to donate or find out more.
All right. Well, I have several videos on a YouTube channel. It's Apostolic Productions. I have all kinds of different videos, but a lot of my videos are there. I'm Dr. Missick on Rumble. There's several videos there as well. And one of the things that on the videos was about talking about secession, Texas national. We didn't get to talk about that.
Let's say that, I think, how much time we got left here? About 2 minutes? Can you give us your position in that frame?
Well, I mean, somebody asked me at a campaign event, it's like, well, do you believe that should be put in the ballot? If that's what if that's what the Texan people want to vote for, yes, I support that. But I served in the military for 30 years. I love my country. I believe in America. I kind of hate to see that happen. But the direction we're going, I think it's unsustainable. I think America is going to fracture anyway, and it might be inevitable that Texas becomes an independent state. Because could you imagine if Joe Biden remains in office, we're going to get another 40 million illegal aliens. Your dollar, which has lost over a third of its value, is going to lose even more. This is not a way forward, and it's going to break our country apart. So Texas independence, the rate we're going, might be inevitable. That's why we need to have President Trump back in office so we can save America. So I'm the Trump candidate. I'm pro-life. I'm going to tackle Colony Ridge because it's in my backyard. I believe in strong border. I worked on the border. No other candidate running for HD18 has the military experience, served their country in combat, served their country at the border, knows the border, is intimately aware of the challenges from Colony Ridge, and wants to do everything I can to save my community. It's going to destroy my hometown. So if you want firm action from a conservative warrior, vote for Dr. Missick for State Rep HD18 on March 5th. Early voting is February 20th to March 1st. So please go out and vote, make an informed vote to save America.
One more time, where can they? I mean, campaigns don't run on fumes. I mean, you need dollars. If they like what they're hearing, where can they go to donate?
StephenMissick.com, and I do have a Facebook account. Steve Missick for Dr. Missick for State Rep. So there's the ways you can get a hold of me through those two ways.
All right. Well, I really appreciate your time, your explanations, and I feel confident this was a good interview. It was a good time. And I hope you'll join us after the elections, either way.
All right. Thank you.
All right. You've been listening to your Freedom Wake Up Call. We'll be back tomorrow.
Join in, just really think in the victory.